Okay, let's get started. So thank you guys for joining in. My name is Girish. I am from Team Bharat Spandan. So we run these peer-to-peer jobs groups since year 2014. And to all the team members in that jobs group, thank you. You guys are doing amazing, selfless work, helping each other. Thank you so much. Okay. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our admins in the groups. We have Aparna ji, Manjit ji, and Abhay Singh ji. Thank you so much for running those jobs groups, right? So for this session, what we do is that we will mute everyone. Okay, let me invite, admit all. Okay. Okay, so now I have the list here. So yeah, as I was explaining, so we are from this team called Bharat Spandan. As some of you know, Bharat Spandan is running a campaign called SOS Corona, where we are helping people across India in almost all states, right? And then we thought the next next thing that we need to focus is on employment sector. This employment sector is actually facing a lot of uncertainties due to disruptions from the lockdown, not just in India but across the world, right? Those lockdowns will affect industries in India. Those industries will, the disruptions in the supply chain, in the marketing of those industries will also affect the employment sector. That's why we decided to host a few sessions over weekends this month. That is to help professionals like you and me. So if you want to keep updated on our future sessions, please follow our Twitter and Facebook page. Yeah, this is the Facebook page. And then we have our Twitter page here. So please follow. We will be keep updating, the sessions. So next session will be most probably next weekend, right? So now coming to the first session today, today we have Vinit Dwivedi with us. Vinit is actually a graduate from IIT Kanpur. He has more than 15 years of experience in building large-scale data-driven platforms in the cloud, right? So Vinit ji is also the. Let me mute everyone again. Okay, so Vinit ji is also the founder and CEO of a company called HireSure.ai. It's a blockchain registry for job offers and employment history. Just trying to see if I can do auto admit all. Okay. Yeah, HireSure is a blockchain registry for job offers and employment history. Maybe Vinit ji, you can talk about your company a little bit later when you start talking. That's all. With that, I invite Vinit ji to talk about the employment opportunities in this post-COVID world. So over to you, Vinit ji. Let me make you the admin, the host. I'm trying to find Vinit ji here. Make host. Yeah, I made you the host now. The control is yours, Vinit ji.
Okay, thanks, Kiriji. Thanks a lot. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me open the slide so that I don't deviate from the thoughts I had. Can everyone see the slide here? Where is the?
Yes, Vinit ji, we can see that universe in your back.
Okay. Can you see the slides? Everyone can see the slides here. You can basically.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, sure. So again, I'll put a disclaimer here. Whatever we are, talking about these are my own thoughts, and they in no way represent the thoughts of our company Hairsure apart. So what I have done is, whatever I could, collect and whatever is my experience on the technology domain, but I try to put that in, slides so that, it is easier for me to explain about what I think is going to be the world post COVID-19 part. So of course, we know the COVID-19, we have been hit by this virus, but unfortunately, we don't know about COVID-19 except its name. So no, we really don't know when the virus will go. We really don't know how much contagious the virus it is, and a lot of things which we thought about the virus to be true in the beginning of the contagious period was were wrong. Okay, and of course there is one part which is like mortality from the virus, but there are far deeper consequences like economical consequences, psychological consequences, social consequences about this virus part. Uh, and if you see this virus again, I never thought in my lifetime that we will sit at home for 1 month without going to office. Kids would not go to school. Trains would not run. This planes would not run. But that's like last 1 month we see that's happening in the world. And you see what industries will suffer the most. Of course, airlines industries have taken the baddest hit because they operate in the wafer thin margins, and since they are not running for 1-2 months, it will be very difficult for any of the airlines industries to survive without any external or government aid. Okay. The second one industry which will suffer is your automobiles industry, and it is primarily for the reason that we are not traveling, we are not going anywhere. We are not so because we are traveling lesser and we are driving lesser. There is less demand for automobiles, and then automobile industry also will definitely will take a hit on the in the COVID scenario. Third is, of course, the real estate. Real estate will take a hit because most of us would not go out, will not go for movies, will not go to malls. Of course, we will go, but the intensity with which we are going earlier would not be the same, at least for a year or two to come. So, and then of course, some companies, I think you would have heard about teachers, putting to a work from home policy for 75% of its employees. It means like 3/4 of the work strength of teachers will work from home, and they are setting up the processes, and they have a timeline of 2-3 years for launching it part. So of course, once people start working from home, there will be less real estate needed, and real estate industry will also will be impacted by COVID virus. And of course, all of this, because finance, you see a lot of people are going to default. I think some of it's already started. NBFCs they have almost shut down their operations. I have few friends in NBFC, and whatever friends I have spoken to, they have not disbursed any loan in the last 1.5 month basically from the time code started, and they don't have plan to do any funding and any loans for again in next 3-4 months, and they don't have a timeline of when will they start. So NBFC, stopping their operations. Banks are under deep stress because a lot of people will default, including the corporates and individuals. So the banks will be under deep stress. Now, when the financial system, the financial sectors comes under stress, it has a domino effect on all other sectors, because banks, you see, is the primary driver of the economy, and they, kind of give loan, businessmen take their loan, and then they invest in the companies, and those companies grow, and they pay the money back to the banks, and then banks again go the loan. But now this cycle is going to be broken, and if the cycle is going to be broken, then this financial sector is going to have an effect on all other sectors. Okay, so now so we all understand that the big pillars of economy may go, and it's just a matter of time before the world economy can go into negative spiral. And of course, UN also has warned that the secondary impacts of COVID are going to be much more disastrous than the fatalities from the virus itself apart. So if you see this whole COVID-19 is kind of a cloud, it's a really black cloud on the world economy. And of course, COVID coming in, we have seen some of the things which we had not seen or imagined, in our lifetime. Again, I said we're locked inside the house, no travel. Something interesting happened. Oil prices went negative for a very brief time. So a price of a thing, we always thought that everything has a price, and it is positive. I think most of you come from programming background, and whenever you keep price as a variable, we put that as a positive variable. We put a constant that it should not be negative. Nobody can put a negative price on anything. So it means like a negative price for oil means like if you're going to buy some 30,000 barrels of oil, you will not have to pay the money. You will get $1 million plus 30,000 barrels of oil, and that is like really really surprising, very 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 illogical by any means. You cannot you cannot have negative price for anything. And in fact, as it happened, why a lot of banking systems or the transaction systems which are connected with this oil trading, they could not function because they had never not accounted for the prices to be negative, so they crashed. So what is happening? What is happening? Things are bad. Things may go, badder in time to come, and then there's a lot of uncertainty in everyone's mind. Whether jobs would be there, jobs would not be there. Everybody is uncertain about that. And I will tell you what I think is happening. Or what I think is the world is going from one equilibrium to another equilibrium, and because the world is shifting its equilibrium from one normal to new normal, it is shaking a lot of our fundamental beliefs. And the beliefs which we had, of course they are shaken, but it is not so illogical. I mean, please don't think that the COVID has basically impacted the world and world is going into some kind of a recession or negative spell. It is not. The world is changing its fundamental. Of course, post COVID the world would be different, but it will be a new normal. It is not going to be a bad state of economy or a bad state of affairs. Some of you might have that fear, but it is definitely not going to be. Just because it is shifting the fundamentals, there is a transition period, and that transition period has a lot of uncertainties, and we can't see the future as clearly as we could see, or we thought we could see a few months back. That's why we are a little scared. But the moment things get cleared in 3-4 months, we will understand that it was just a change of normal, just a change of one fundamental to other fundamental. And we are in the midst of transition. So I'll just take example of the oil part we discussed about again, and it looked so illogical that you cannot buy oil for negative price. But if you just think a little more deeper about that, oil needs storage. So if you are paying money for oil, you need to store it somewhere, and the storage has a cost. So whatever I know about the oil and gas industry, you cannot stop the production of oil. So if you are producing oil and there's nobody to consume and you cannot store it somewhere, there is no other way for you to sell the oil at negative price. Because say you can't throw the oil, you can't discharge it in lakes, so you have to give it to somebody to store that. And since nobody is ready to take that, you will be willing to pay money for someone to take it, and that's why the oil price went negative. So it is not like something things change drastically, they become illogical. They're very logical, but just because of the transition period, there was some confusion about the whole pricing part. So what should we do in this transition period? What should we do as an individual, as a person, as a programmer? What should we do? Just ask a question yourself. What do fishermen do when there's a sea storm and they cannot go out? I'm sure some of you are from the coastal area. Even Girishji is from Mangalore. So the fishermen, when they can't go out, they build their nets, and that's what we all need to do. We need to build our nets. We need to align ourselves to the new normal. We need to change our fundamentals, change ourselves, and this transition period is the best time for that. It is the best time for changing our fundamentals, aligning ourselves to the new era. I would say it's an era which is coming, and changing ourselves. And if you just think about that, what is that one thing which drives the world economy? I think you can write on chat without looking at the slides, because I've given the answers there. So you can just write on the chat, what do you think is the one thing that drives the world economy? It is our hope for the future. If we are hopeful, economy will go up. If we are not hopeful about the future, economy will go down. As simple as that. So if you have a positive mindset, the economy is going up, you will invest in things which you think will consume later on, and the economy will go up. If you are not positive about the future, the economy will go down. Sometimes we are more hopeful than we should be, and that's what is called an economical bubble. So we all have seen like the bubble, or we have heard about the bubble. And how do we measure our hope, the collective hope of all the people in the world? How do we measure that? How do we ensure that people who are there are thinking positively or negatively? Any answers? Okay, so think about that. There is a very simple method of checking that, that the collective hope of people, and that's called stock market. If you look at the stock market, they are the best indicator of the hope of the people, the expectation of the people, the expectation of the corporates, and expectation of individuals. And if you look at the stock market in India, I think I have a slide, next slide, which said that we have gone down, but we have not gone down drastically. If you see stock market from a level of 12,000, Nifty has gone less than 20%. I mean, probably 17-18%. We're still at 10,000 part. So, the point which I want to make is, people are positive, people are hopeful, businesses are positive, businesses are hopeful. That means we are not likely to go into recession. And as long as, and see, it's not like COVID came just now. I mean, it has been there for like, quite some time, since January. And then people have seen enough of that. And even after that, we have that whole, the expectation that this COVID will go and the things would be normal part. So as long as, so if you see, the businesses have a very, very positive outlook. They don't have a negative outlook. So don't think that the moment COVID starts, businesses will go into negative mode. They'll start firing people. Of course, they will do some things to optimize their business functions, but it will not be a recession. It will never be a recession. I mean, at least for COVID, I can assure you that it will not be a recession. And now the positive side, if you see, of course, we have talked about a lot of industry which have gone into a negative spiral, but there are a lot of industries which have benefited from COVID. Okay, so I'll just take a small division from here. If you think what happened on the demonetization, the day demonetization was announced, what happened? What was the positive side of that? Of course, the primary objective of demonetization was to curb black money, and I think it was very, very successful in doing that. But apart from doing that, curbing the black money, it did also one big thing is that a lot of people shifted into online payment. So the online payment percentage, which was very, very small before demonetization, it increased by multiple fold. And there are a lot of companies which came into online. So if you see similarly, even the COVID is going to have a very, very positive spin on a lot of industry. The first being education technology. So if you see education technology companies, they're doing really, really well. Online communication tools like Zoom, we are using Zoom now. Slack and all are doing really well. Healthcare is doing well. Food, especially the high-end organic food industry is doing well. Online courses, of course, a lot of companies. There are a lot of online courses company on our platform, and we see them very, very hiring very, very aggressively. And we speak to them, and what we have realized is they are doing really well. Of course, the streaming platform like Netflix, Amazon Prime, we are doing well because we all at home, and then we all are watching, finishing our series apart. And online payment and e-commerce is also doing well. So it is not like everything is going down. There are industries which are impacted positively by this, part, and then they are doing really well. If you see in medium to long term, the India is going to be a big manufacturing hub. The government is going to push Make in India in a really, really big way. And I'll tell you a very simple reason for that. The world post-COVID would not trust China. Every country would like to be as independent as possible and self-sufficient as possible. And India understands that tomorrow anything of this sort happen, if we don't have our own capability to manufacture, we would be doomed. And because China does not have good intentions towards any country, I mean, I should not say that in a public forum, but we all understand that China as a country has been very, very secretive about this COVID stuff. And we have seen that, while US has more than 1 million cases, China, which has almost 5 times more population than US, and of course it got COVID much earlier, had impact of only 80,000 people, which is actually not possible. I mean, if you see US, getting impacted by more than 1 million, China with much, much more population is just showing a number of 80,000, not possible. There's something very fishy here. So governments are not going to trust, especially Indian government, and they are going to push that manufacturing in a really, really big way. It is just a matter of time. Let this COVID settle down, and I can guarantee this manufacturing is going to go in a really big way in India. Of course, the few other things, like we discussed, that the normal would change. Few other things would change in coming years. Apart, companies would be okay with work from home, and TCS has already said that they are doing almost 25% of their workforce will work from home.
Vinitji, can I
Yeah,
interrupt
Girish.
1 minute?
Yes.
We'll take a 30-second break. Can you let in participants if anybody waiting? Because I lost my
Okay, host
host.
thing.
Yeah, that's right. Big single host, right?
Okay.
You just
Hold
need to
on.
let in everyone. That's all.
How do I let in people?
It was on the right hand side.
More record. Can I make you a host and then maybe
Okay. Let
how do I
me.
make you host?
You got to click on my name. The first one, Bharat Spandan, and then
Yeah, make host. Yes, I've made you host. Then they can come.
let me host.
Yeah.
Yeah, admit all. There are 7 people waiting. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Not many.
Okay.
Not many. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just perfecting Zoom. So sorry, guys.
Yeah.
So also as we get those people in. So if any of you have questions, please type it on the chat box. So that Aparna ji will pick those questions and she will bring it up to Vineet ji at the end of the session. So it will take like 10 minutes for Q&A in the end. So just give me 30 seconds. Let me in those people. Yeah, I don't know what happened. It should be automatically coming in.
Correct. Yeah. So we also don't use like Zoom that much. We use Google Hangout meeting. So.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we will change it to something else next time. There's this Jitsi that is working very good. We have tried that a few days back.
Okay.
So, okay, I will make you host again. Can you
Actually, not
continue
needed.
like
Yeah.
that? Not needed,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah. Not
Then you
because
please continue. Yes.
the slides are there. No, you can see the slides.
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah. So I'll continue then.
Perfect.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Again. So if you see, there is one thing which is going to change in the next 3-4 years, and what will happen is the employment would not be permanent. Most of the people will work on short-term employment, and it will be more like a mercenary project. I mean, you take a short-term project for 6 months, complete the project, and go to the next company to do your project. So companies would keep, in my opinion, that's what I think, and of course, that maybe 50% they would keep permanent staff, and 50% they will keep staff. It will change. So the short term project based employment will become a norm in 3-4 years. People will just take one job in one company for 6 months, then they will go move to next company for 6 months, and they will keep moving like that. That way what will happen is people will be able to better utilize the resources apart, because of course we understand that the software development is a process, it's a phase. I know some phases you require more of development, less of testing. Some phases require more of testing, less of development. So you can optimize those projects by keeping those employment at short term part. And of course, there'll be better tools which will produce software with lesser bugs. So designing and architecting will take precedence over programming. So of course, having understanding of programming is good, but understanding the whole architecture of the program will become more important in time to come. Part. And of course, my hypothesis is that the relational databases like your MySQL, MariaDB, they will evolve to a much larger storage amount of data, and the use cases of NoSQL like MongoDB and DynamoDB will be very limited. So of course, people will use these NoSQL kind of a databases, but because relational databases have evolved to store and they will perform much better part. So there, the need for the need for NoSQL will be limited part. So it is not like in future MySQL is going to go away, or Mongo is going to replace these RDBMSs in any way. So just want to tell. I mean, these are my thoughts and hypotheses part. Of course, I'll give you a small brief about HireSure, and the context is, just to tell you about, why I am talking about that, why I'm predicting the things the way, predicting the jobs part. We are a platform, for offer and release management. A lot of companies, and more than 500 companies use our platform. They give their offer letters and they give their relieving letter on our platform. So because all these offers and relieving letters are going from our platform, we have a fairly good idea about what segments are growing and what segments are not growing. But and of course, all we know is that all of us know that offers are a lead indicator of economy. So if you are thinking good about the future, you'll start hiring right away. But because you know that hiring, of course, takes time, and then by the time people come on board, it will take again, uh, a few months for them to be productive on the job part. And so we have some interesting insights from the platform to share. And these are like, so if you see, in the last 1 month, what we have seen on the platform is the new offers are down. Of course, the companies are not releasing offers as aggressively as they were releasing a month back, part. But it is not like the companies are in retrenchment mode. They're just stopped because there is no they're not, there's no clarity in what will happen post COVID. So they are just being cautious about hiring. That's it. It is not like they have gone into a negative spiral. Technology is still a very, very hot area, and it will be there for some time. What we have seen is, the hiring which is stopped is mostly for good to have like a role. Like for example, blog hiring, social media hiring, those hirings are like, kind of a put on hold. But technology hiring is still continuing. We still see a lot of gaps, for junior mid-level programmers, and we see that the hope this whole trend will continue for some time to come. Apart. So here are my few suggestions to people who are interested in programming. I mean, Girish told me that most of the people who will join the talk will come from the software background. So I thought I will just tell you what I think, you should do if you are in, software programming line. Python, Django, and Node, they are the most popular platforms. So we see that most of the hiring which is happening on a platform, Azure, is happening in these two areas, Python, Django, and Node areas. uh, Companies, they prefer full stack developers. So if you are, for example, working only on the back end, or you are working only on the front end, you should try to expand your skills and become a full stack developer. If you are working the back end, learn a bit of HTML, CSS, JavaScript. If you're working on HTML, CSS, work a little bit of back end technology, so that you have an understanding of the entire stack from the front end to the back end part. Of course, you should also get some understanding of the DevOps processes. If you're in programming, you should understand how does cloud work, how do you host your program in AWS or GCP or Azure. How do you make it scale? What are the other tools on the cloud you can use to improve the performance of your programs or website or even apps part. So programming is one part, but optimizing, scaling, using the cloud in a very efficient manner is a different thing part. And I would advise you guys not to worry too much about IoT, blockchain, AIML, data science. You would hear all these buzzwords, and of course you will be tempted to learn about that. But I would advise that they can be learned very quickly if your fundamentals are strong. You focus on the core strength. Like for example, if you're learning a programming language, you learn that, you understand the whole cycle about the front end and back end. Try and understand about the cloud technologies, hosting and other stuff, rather than focusing on these the keywords and buzzwords. I would say they are buzzwords in my opinion. IoT, blockchain, data science still to some extent can be learned, but then these are not very difficult to learn. Say for example, in your project, if you need these, I would suggest that with the strong fundamentals, they are just a matter of probably a month or two, you'll have to spend to learn this technology parts. So overall, I would say uh, if you are in, this is a time to learn, sharpen your skills, learn new technologies. And I'm very, very hopeful that in time to come, the economy is going to be better than what it was before COVID. So that's all from my side. I would be open to questions.
Thank you, Vinitji. I think that was very informative. So let's see if there are any questions here. Where is Aparnaji? Aparnaji, were you able to collect questions from people?
Hi, Vinitji. This is Jyoti Ranjan. I have one question. So, how are you looking about more than 10 plus years experience going forward? How is the hiring in the market condition by seeing all these things?
So up to 13, 14 years, we don't see a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that is reduced. Definitely, yes. I mean, no, and it is not like, I would say that it is like, maybe temporary, not a permanent part.
Mm-hmm.
But we see that the number of high offers for very high number of years experience, 13 plus, is reduced.
Okay, thank you.
So Vinitji, there were a couple of more questions during the session, and I have jotted down for the benefit of the larger group out here. The first question that we had is, what's your perspective about agriculture or farming? In fact, and what is the futuristic scope? Are there more people towards this sector? And any thoughts that you have around this?
So agriculture, actually, I'm very, very positive about agriculture. So if you see, and that's a very simple reason for that. Say, for example, in now, if you have money and you're sitting at home, you can't go for a movie outside, you can't go to a very posh restaurant. What will you do? Sitting at home, you'll watch TV and eat. So what would you eat? You would like to eat something, which is very, very exotic part. So I would suggest that I would think, is that the high-end farming, especially the organic part, is going to grow. As people spend more time at home, they will be, more keen on this, high-end organic stuff part. And people have realized that, whatever we do, agriculture is the core. So I see a big boost coming to agriculture, both a normal agriculture and especially for this high-end organic stuff.
Okay. And do you also feel that there could be a lot more investment, because one you spoke is more to do on the domestic part of it, where or a group of people or from the family, they could really take in this. But however, investments coming in the sector.
Yes, investment would come. So the thing is that as more demand comes for this, especially the organic foods sector, investment would come.
Okay, thank you. The second question from the team out here was, how would import and export business houses will have scope post COVID?
So post COVID, see what will happen is the import and export. Again, it is my personal opinion. I think it would go down. The countries would try to be more self-sufficient. So maybe not in short term, but in long term, I see there will be an impact on import and export.
Okay. And in one of the slides, which really spoke about diversified industry and positive trend towards its growth. Of that, one of the questions that has come up is, what is the scope for new entrepreneurs, and will there be investors who really come forward with the right kind of an investment?
So again, we are also a startup, and we are in touch with a lot of venture capitalists part. There is still, if of course they would not invest if you're a financial technology company now. There are some sectors they would not touch part. But for most of the sectors, they are very, very open now. I mean, even now you can reach out to VC. There is a scope for investment if you're an entrepreneur. Of course, some sectors are taboo. I mean, they would not go there. But for the other sectors, they are open.
Okay. And for those who are non-entrepreneurial and who are very much into the job segment or an employee as of now, what is the change in the hiring that companies and organizations would start looking at?
So one thing is, of course, the salary would not increase. I mean, I think that all of you know that. I mean, I don't have to repeat that part. Salaries would not increase. They would have to reskill. They will to upskill, because the companies would need people who can work on multiple technologies or multiple. For example, earlier if the company had both, front-end developer and back-end developer, they would try to do away with one and then try to optimize with the guy who can do both work. So of course there would be there would be a requirement for technology, but people should upskill and learn new technologies.
Okay. Obvious question again, in the minds of youngsters and who are yet to start their careers of this. How are organizations looking at freshers who are yet to get into the job markets? and what is the prospects for them in case the final semester students have been placed? So the question is, would they honor the offers?
So, see, a lot of companies, what I have seen is they have postponed that this joinings. I mean, I have heard from some of the colleges that the offering has been postponed, but they have not stopped. So I would say almost 70% should honor the offers. It is not like they would not honor the offers. And of course, say for example, if you're in industry in automobile, if you're industry in real estate, there will be a stress on you. You cannot honor that offer because you will not have sufficient cash for honoring that. Barring those, I think mostly it should be they should be able to honor the offer. But of course, I see an impact of 20 to 25% companies not honoring the offer or maybe postponing it by more than 6 months.
Oh, okay. So now that there is a lot of supply versus the demand, and organizations are really taking hard decisions and very cognizant in terms of the decision versus what the skill is. When such a huge supply is there, what is an opportunity for them to beyond upskilling?
So see, I still feel that the supply, the quality of the supply is not up to the mark, and the market has enough appetite to take good skilled people. It is not like there is more supply and less demand, and there is a demand for more skilled people, but then unfortunately we don't have those in the industry part. I have seen a lot of companies which are really ready to hire, but they're not getting good people, good technology people part. So I would suggest that you upskill yourself, do hands-on project. That's very, very important. If you can get any opportunity to do work on a hands-on project, you do that. But upskill yourself, and definitely if you have skill, there will be opportunity for you.
Okay. If I may add one other input on the hiring segment is, a lot of organizations are now looking to get people more on the contractual basis as well as on consulting basis. And it's important for job seekers to have an open mind to accept opportunities, both in terms of learning as well as in terms of earning, than being very conservative in the approach of how they would look at careers.
Okay, that's a very valid point, Aparna ji. I mean, the companies would offer more and more contract jobs, but we would advise the youngsters that you focus more on learning. Part. Don't worry about the monetary part, especially in the initial year. That will automatically get stabilized once you learn, once you get a little stable in the technology.
Okay. There is one other question which has come up now. What about pharmaceutical marketing companies? So, any thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't have much idea about them, though I've read about that newspaper, but I would not call myself the expert in that. So I would probably not answer that.
Sure, that's okay. Yeah. One other question is, how will hiring change? And with a huge talent pool, how do we know which talent is honest?
Okay, so that's if you see, that's what we are doing. I mean, our platform is the same. What we do is the offer goes from our platform, and we keep the registry of the person. So what happens is, a person, when he takes offer from our platform, he will honor the offer on the platform, because he understands that if he accepts offer and he does not honor that record can be verified in future part. So of course, we started with that vision that we should have verifiable data which should be verified by the company, which should be certified by the company, and other companies can verify the data and make sure that the candidate who are honest about whatever they're claiming. So for example, somebody is claiming that he has worked for 3 years in a company, it should be an honest record. He should not fudge that. Now if you see if a startup if they close down, there is no way for anyone to verify the employment of any person at startup. Okay, because the startup is either closed, or it's acquired, or it's like maybe merged with some other company. But what we do is, when the relieving happens from our platform, that relieving record is permanent. It can be verified at any point of time on our platform. So any company, even 10 years from now, can come on the platform and verify that this guy worked in that company. So that's what we are trying to do. We're trying to get a transparency in the whole job market.
Okay. how different is your organization services as compared to background verification organization? Because for this, obviously, the authentication is to have the right documentation in place.
Right.
Generally, a well-known organization or a brand or registered firms do issue the right kind of documentation. So how different are your services as compared to them?
Okay. So we are not a background verification organization. What we do is all our records is actually verified and put by the company itself. For example, if a candidate accepts an offer letter and the company marks that this candidate has joined that organization, the record is created. And when the person employee leaves the company, then again the record is created. So these are verifiable records which are input by the company, not claimed by the candidate, part which are verified. And of course, we have a whole process of taking consent from the candidate before checking all that part. So we are not like we don't see ourselves as a background verification company. We see ourselves more as a platform which helps companies to hire in a better way, and of course do the living in a better way, and we create this employment record.
Thank you again. One of the
There are a few more questions, right? I just copied there, Aparnaji. There is someone posted to me. I posted that in the group. Go ahead.
One of the question is from a youngster is what kind of skills is required for them to improve on given the current situation, especially in the mechanical field?
So since the mechanical is impacted, it will definitely be impacted because the automobiles will be down in a big way part. So if you are really interested in mechanical engineering, I would suggest that you go for research part. Maybe if you are just passing out, you should try for GATE. You should try to go to IITs and IITs, do your master's part. So I'm sure the jobs in mechanical engineering would be very, very limited, and it will be impacted by COVID. So I would advise to upskill yourself and go for a master's or a higher degree.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add to that, what Vinitji was mentioning, there is also a lot of talk about companies moving from China to India.
Yes,
right?
manufacturing part we discussed, yeah.
Exactly. We are not very sure what is happening there, but if that happens, there will be a lot of manufacturing jobs. But as Vinitji said, I think we should focus on studying, research, as well as upskilling as the first thing.
Yeah, it will take maybe 1-2 years to come, all those manufacturing, but it will definitely come. I'm very, very positive about that.
Correct.
But one of the all-time important skill is communication, which would stand evergreen, whichever the sector people would come into, and this is very critical. The second opportunity for anybody to get into is into customer service. This becomes a lot more vital now. Organizations are watching it with a very close lens, and there are newer initiatives which have been taken in this space. So I'm just saying this with my own experience of being in the HR for quite some time now. So.
Yes. No, I think you're correct. I mean, those skills would be needed.
Okay. One other question is, how will technology be changing in the real estate sector? What kind of skills are required by people working in this sector in case they would like to change or upskill?
No, so you are saying the people who are working in real estate sectors, in technology in real estate part. So if you are saying technology, so real estate as a sector would probably not do well for the next 1-2 years part. But technology, if you ask me, is like a sector agnostic. If you have made an app for real estate or made an app for a website, develop the whole CRM for real estate, you can do for any other segment. So if you're in technology, the sector should not be a restriction for you. You can change your sector part. But real estate per se, I'm little doubtful that it will do well for the next 1-2 years.
Okay. The next one is about investment banking sector. Any thoughts around that? And jobs?
So, investment banking sector, say, again, jobs there would be limited part. I mean, because say this investment would come down, there'll be lesser need for people who want to go into investment banking sector. So overall, if you're interested in investment banking per se, I would say it will slow down a little bit for next 1 year, but it will be temporary. These things will be temporary.
Okay.
Say for example, if you want to be an investment banker, and for that, you want to go to an MBA college, a good MBA college, please do that, because after 2 years it will definitely come up. But if you want to take an investment banker job right now, it'll be difficult.
So, Vineetji, there are certain compliments coming your way over here, and people are mentioning that you've been a great motivator, and we see that through this talk out here today. One question that is emerging from this individual is, what is really important for people who are starting their career journey, and what are some things that an individual needs to do to stay motivated and keep up perseverance?
So see, these are definitely this is little uncertain time, and a lot of companies have postponed their joining. So I would suggest that first thing that your outlook should be very, very positive. If you think that this is not a recession. I have shown you the stock market indicators. It's not a recession, so don't be worried too much about that. You just focus like a fisherman. You just build your nets. You just focus on learning. I mean, if a company has given you 6 months extension, you take a course from Coursera and learn for those 6 months.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions, Aparna?
No, I think we had a good set of questions out there.
Okay, let's open up to the people as well. If somebody want to ask question, we still have another 5 minutes. You can unmute and ask the question.
Can I start? This is Kaveri Tyagarajan.
Please, Kaveri ji, go ahead.
Vineetji, thank you very much. It was a very informative session.
Thanks,
my question is, you mentioned there would be an impact on the export-import.
Yes.
So when it comes to the export, the Indian market is, what would be the impact on the BPO sector, ITES sector, IT sector?
So see, overall, there would be impact. Of course, there will be impact on all the sectors part. When we talked about import-export, I was thinking about the import and export of products, not services part. So import-export of products is definitely going to be impacted, but services would not be impacted that much. See, the thing is that the large organizations, they plan for years. They have big systems, that system needs maintenance. It is not like they can stop those systems one day. If I have a large bank and I have 1,000 people working on that, I cannot stop everything together. So it will, it's like there's a momentum to that. So because of that, there will be an impact. I mean, there will be an impact on cost mostly. They will push back these companies to reduce their cost, but employment would be impacted in a very, very small way.
Okay, perfect. Just to add on.
Yeah, go ahead. You wanted to say something, Kaveri ji?
I think we lost her.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else has any questions?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Kaveri, please go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I think I lost the connection. Just to continue with the same question, you did mention that many of the countries will try to become self-sufficient.
Yes. Yeah.
So would that be in the product market or in the services market?
Mostly product. So for example, now we are very, very dependent on China, because a lot of things, they come only from China because they produce it very cheap, and we all know that they produce very cheap because they artificially change their prices, their exchange rate basically. So they basically have a fixed exchange rate for their currency, and that's what makes it very, very lucrative for their industries to export outside. But we all understand that this is a trap now, and tomorrow if anything happens, we'll be so dependent part. So the manufacturing is going to come in a big way in India.
Okay, so the IT sector, they, in those aspects, those countries may not become independent or self-sufficient.
Yes.
So India will continue to.
Yes.
Looks like there is disruption in Kaveri or microphone. So let's go to the next person. I think Rajiv ji, you have some questions?
Yep.
Please go
It's
ahead.
slightly personal.
Yeah.
First thing, I'm not from the technology background, but I have a very strong acumen to understand how processes can be built. And I strongly believe that technology can deliver if users can define exactly what is needed.
Correct. Yes.
Right? So I want to understand how to sell these skills, because typically an organization wants technology skills along with business analysis or process understanding.
Correct. Yeah. So, your question is over, Rajiv?
Yeah, my question is over. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes. So I think you have a very, very valid point, and that's what we also discuss. In our team, that there. So you see, there are people who can develop. But there is a definite shortage of people who can understand the businesses and map it to a process workflow. I mean, there is really a need of people who can, define the product. They can define the whole product, that they should work like that part. So if you ask me, there is definitely a gap in the current market, especially the people who can define the process and map it to technology with some understanding of technology.
Right. So you're saying there is a space for such skills.
100%.
All right. And typically, how these skills are? What is the nomenclature of these skills?
So they are typically, I would say, they're product manager roles, and they also need to understand a little bit of technology, because they will map the process with some kind of a technology. So they should understand the limitations of technology, so they can map, and they can process it too, and that they can transfer it to the development team. So if you see, there's a person which is like our team, which is kind of acting as a bridge between the business requirement and the technology. I mean, they are taking from business requirement, understanding that, mapping to technology part, and transferring it here.
All right, got it. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. I think there are a few more questions. Pranav, you want to take up those questions?
So
The chat box.
So I had shared my email. I think if you guys have questions, you can email to me. I would respond to those emails.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe you can share that again if you don't mind.
Yeah. I'll write it here. Yes.
Okay. Meanwhile, there are a few questions. Pranav, if you are not
Question which
picking
is
up. Okay. Please go ahead.
sorry. So there's one question again related to agriculture. I guess we have covered that in the earlier discussion. Let me move on to the other one, which is on commercial crop like coffee, tea, and cardamom.
Yeah.
Export of commercial crop like coffee, tea, and cardamom.
Yeah. So I don't see this impacting the consumption of coffee, tea, and cardamom in any way. So I think, of course, there will be pressure on cost part, but the demand would be roughly the same.
Okay. Again, relating it back to the technology industry, what's the opportunity and scope for the skills like AI as well as data science, especially post COVID-19?
Okay. So see, data science is, of course, a very, very hot field now. Given the recent trend of coming in. Say again, I would suggest that unless if you have guys understand the whole technology stack very well, if you understand how does front end work, if you understand how does back end work, if you understand how do you host your application to a cloud, and if you can optimize and scale that, then only you go into these areas. Because see, the thing is that it is very easy to get carried away by those big names and thinking that you are doing a good thing, but there's still a big demand for good programmers in that side. So once you have done that, then of course you can learn data science, you can learn AI, and most of the AI work which is done, I mean, you're not developing those algorithms. Somebody already wrote that. You're basically using those algorithms. Basically, what you are doing is in AI, you have a problem, and you understand what are the best tools available to use that, and basically you put the data, you feed the data into those tools, and they give you back the results part. For example, if I use a prediction API and those APIs, it is just like we are not writing any algorithm for AI. So most of the AI work, if you see, is mostly understanding how to use those tools, not developing AI algorithms part. Similarly, in data science, people focus more on the more on the visualization part, more on the other stuff of data science, but they don't have good understanding of the statistics portion of that. So unless you understand the core statistics of data science, just taking a course and doing some kind of a, so if you see most of data science courses I have seen, they teach you MongoDB, they teach you how to get the data, they teach you how to do the basic analysis. But unless you understand the statistics portion of that, you cannot do any analysis in data. I mean, maybe you can run few tools, but you can't do that. So I would say that if you want to start, if you have done all that, then you come to data science. And if you want to start data science, you start with basic statistics. Don't do anything, just read a good statistics book for like 3-4 months, and then you go into data science. You will enjoy it much more. I mean, I can guarantee that you'll enjoy it much more, other than just taking a course and learning.
So the next question coming your way is, how is job market going to tilt? Is there more demand towards specific skills, or are there more demand towards generic skills?
So see, I think the generic skills are still, I mean, I would like to, maybe generic, we'll have to define what do you mean by generic. But if you think generic is like a full stack programmer, of course the demand is there for that. There would be, and specific skills means, maybe I would like to understand more. I mean, what does generic and specific skills mean part? But if I understand that generic skills means more like a your full stack programming, and specific skills mean data science and AI. I mean, if I understand that, then I think it will be similar. It will not be changing much. It is not like it's going to tilt in one way or the other. I mean, it will all reduce to some extent, but the reduction will be same both in generic and this.
Okay. And maybe a follow-through question of the earlier one is, after COVID-19, how would the job opportunities be in the IT sector as compared to the manufacturing sector?
So again, manufacturing sector will take a short hit, and it will take a short hit for like maybe 6 months, 7 months. But in medium term, I see manufacturing sector coming in a big way. So if you have a medium term outlook, I would say manufacturing sector is good part. IT sector would continue to do well. I mean, it's doing well, but then of course there'll be pressure on the cost. But you focus on skills. I still feel whatever companies we have, they are still hiring aggressively in technology, especially that mid experience segment, 2 to 10, 12 years part. So I don't see that jobs going down that much. It will definitely be little, it will contract a little bit, but it won't go down that much.
There is a increasing, cloud technology has been emerging, and there is an increasing reliance on the US geography, who are the major providers for these. So what is your take on this, and should we start thinking about an indigenous cloud provider?
I think that's a good question. If you see all the big cloud providers, Amazon, Google, Oracle, and Microsoft, these are like the 4 big providers. They are all in the US. They're all in the US. And there is, of course, some way I don't see, but then there's a need for an Indian, cloud big company to emerge. But whatever cloud companies are there in India, they are very, very small. They are not even like 1/10 or 1/100 of the size part. So there is a space, but see, the cloud is so competitive that you require a big company investing in. I mean, I say if Mukesh Ambani said that I want to start a cloud business, I would say yes, you can do that. But for a small company to develop a cloud business and grow will be very, very difficult. So unless some big people, they come together and start a cloud business, it is very, very difficult to compete against those big guys, because they have optimized it to core. I mean, there's like a very, very small optimization possible now. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
We can take one more question, I guess, Aparnaji. I think we are on top of the hour.
Yeah, the last question I have is very specific, related to competence. Will there be an impact on the mid-level manager roles? And do you see a possibility of such roles being converted into short-term contract roles? And what is the impact on their compensation?
So see, the compensation, actually, companies will be hard pressed to reduce the compensation or keep it at whatever last year's level. That is going to be, the stress is going to be there. Manager role will be impacted because again, if you see uh, role is most, I mean, the technology role would not be impacted that much, but manager will be impacted because whatever is good to have, is definitely companies would try to do away with those roles and optimize when they are like pushed to optimize on the cost part. So manager roles, there will be a good some pressure on the manager kind of a role. I would say shifting to a technology would be a better option.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aparna. I think we are on top of the hour. We will give last one chance for one final question if anyone has. Okay. Okay, before ending this, I wish to thank everyone again and also our jobs group admins, Aparna ji, Manjit ji, and Abhay Singh ji. Thank you again, and thanks everyone. Vineet ji, thanks for accepting this and coming in. It was a very informative session. We truly appreciate.
Thanks, Girish.
Right.
Thanks, Aparna. And thanks, everyone. You were a nice audience.
Yeah.
So I have shared my email here. If you have any questions, you can, send it to me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
For the next session, you can keep following our handles. We will have the update. Thank you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.